I'm Andrew House. I currently live in Broken Hill. I went through drug rehab in 1985 because I had a history of chronic drug addiction myself. And then when I was 8 years clean from drugs, I actually got a job in the rehab that I went through. I'm the alcohol and other drug clinician, so I'm currently working with the Royal Flying Doctor Service based here in Broken Hill. I always felt like I was on the outside looking in, and I always felt like I didn't belong. And it was a real weird experience because I went to school and I'd see people and they seemed to do life easy. You know, they sort of seemed to get on with each other easy. They seemed to do the schoolwork easily. They seemed to have fun easily. And I used to watch them, and there was a part of me thinking, how do they do that? And then when I was 14, I had my first drink, which was alcohol. And a lot of people say, what was it that made you start, using drugs? And it's like a small town. Everyone drinks. Everyone goes to the pub. Everyone goes to the footy. Everyone gets on the drink, and go to barbecues and you drink. You go out for a swim, you drink, and I fell in love with the experience. And it's almost like it created a person that I had the first drink, which created a person that loved drinking, and I loved drinking. I just loved it. It was like someone had a tiger chained up for 14 years and suddenly sort of let them out of the cage, and that's what I felt like. I just felt free. I hated parts of it, but I just loved the effect. I got curious about other drugs as a result, I suppose, and there was all these things that I said I'd never do. Well, eventually eventually drug use was full time. I was really anxious all the time. I was probably really anxious, really depressed, really self-centered. And I remember my dad trying to help me by giving me some work. I remember just lying awake all night and then dreading the sun coming up, in the daylight, and having to go out and face people. And it was actually terror. It wasn't fear. And I felt lots of feelings. I felt insecure. I felt self-conscious. I felt fearful, and I didn't fit what my concept of a male was. I thought men were 6'4", bulletproof, could handle anything, cope with anything, deal with any situation. Not have any fears, not have any anxieties. And I had all that stuff, because what I did was I took chemicals, but I just kept having this need for another one and another one and another one. I wasn't aware that I was actually using drugs to cover up the way I felt. So my whole life revolved around, and getting the next drug. And everything I did seemed to revolve around that. But I didn't know I had a problem. I didn't know that I was addicted to it. I didn't know that it was going to cause the problems down the track that it caused. Within that period, 14 to 22, I'd been to 3 different jails. I'd been in rehab 8 times. I'd been homeless for probably 3 years. I caused a lot of pain, a lot of anguish, with my friends, family, and I didn't like who I was. I just had this I had this deep self-hatred. So I really worked hard to try and be someone else. And a lot of people say, what was the moment that that happened that got you to get straight? And there's probably no one moment. It was probably a culmination of like 1,000 moments. It was like everything. I saw the big picture, and I understood that I was actually really powerless over my addiction, and I just had to give in. So yeah, I went into rehab, and I remember the relief. I just felt relieved, and it's almost like I just 100% let go. I think I was just raw, and I was angry, I was lonely, I was resentful, I was confused. I had no idea about how to live, to communicate, so I didn't pretend anymore. So I was in rehab for 19 months, but I learned a lot there, and I learned about you take on responsibilities because the residents ran the whole program virtually. There's only like a couple of staff members and 200 residents, and it was good, and I actually liked the responsibility. But I felt supported as I was doing it, so I wasn't just there by myself. So people were actually helping me get to the next spot, the next spot, the next spot, and then I left rehab, and I was just a regular person. I think by keep attending like support groups, counselling, therapy, I've been in and out of therapy most of my life for different issues and stuff, and generally it's more just a way to keep stimulating that sort of personal growth. But it's funny, I'm not a disciplined sort of person, so I'm not a good eater, I sleep pretty well, but the thing that I have, the best thing that my thing is that I'm grateful every day. I think gratitude is my thing, I'm so grateful. I'm as grateful today that I'm not in that life than I was the day I sort of walked into rehab. I've always been grateful. And my number one goal in life is to stay clean. So I changed my relationship with the drug. So if something bad happens in my life, I don't look to that because there's no solution there. Never was, never will be. You know, I see my solution in reaching out to someone or, you know, sharing what's going on with me or, you know, yeah, having a cry.